Good evening. My name is Leslie Roach. Welcome to VerseFest 2020. I wanted to start out by saying that we are broadcasting from the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe. On behalf of our partners at the International Writers Festival, the Ottawa Public Library, and Library and Archives Canada, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to an evening of poetry and conversation. Our official bookseller is Perfect Books, and I want to thank you for supporting writers, publishers, and booksellers during this difficult time. Whether you're watching this, wherever you're watching this is a fantastic opportunity to support independent booksellers online who would be more than happy to sell you some great books. This evening, I have the honor and pleasure of being in the company of three remarkable poets: Irfan Ali, Stephanie Roberts, and Angye Gaona. Each poet will share a special selection of their work with us. After each poet has read their work, we will have a brief discussion, which will be followed by questions and answers from our panel. The audience can ask questions by leaving a comment on Facebook or by using the Q&A tool on Zoom. So without further ado, I would like to start by introducing you to Irfan Ali. Irfan Ali is a poet, essayist, writer, and educator. His poetry collection, Who I Think About When I Think About You, was shortlisted for the 2015 Bronwyn Wallace Award for Emerging Writers. Accretion is his first full-length work. Irfan was born, raised, and still lives in Toronto. Greetings, Irfan. Please feel free to go ahead when you're ready.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Leslie. I'm Irfan Ali. Just before I get into my reading, of course, it's an honor to be here. A huge thank you to VerseFest, to the Ottawa Writers Festival, to the Ottawa Public Library, and what was the last one? The Library Archive something? I feel like I should know that, but I apologize for not. I'm going to be reading just a brief selection from my poetry collection, Accretion, which came out earlier this year with Brick Books. The little thumbnail version of the cover makes it look really trippy, so hopefully your eyes aren't hurting by looking at that. And just by a small preamble before I begin, Accretion is a verse novella, mostly autobiographical, telling the story of, I guess, the most significant depressive episode I had in my life and my recovery from that. As well, it's also an ode to and a subversion of the story of Layla and Majnun, which is an old Arab folktale that's often called the Romeo and Juliet of the East. I'm going to be trying to read a cross-section of poems that still maintains the narrative, but given that the reading slot's a little bit slim, that may not work, but I'll try my best. At any rate, here we go. Song for my sisters. You were two, I think, only beings in this world, but women in another, who were to be the coaches through my clumsy games, or the mortar binding tradition to honor. Love is an unbreachable mass, Mama taught me. It's only moved from one place to another, and you'd both already taken root. To be part sister in a brother's body is a special kind of cruelty. But in a world already burning with what it means to be a man, maybe that is the only mercy. A seeing. The panicked first moment, like an echo's echo from a long forsaken cave, an endless cascade across a hall of mirrors, unmistakable, even if the collision had left me blind. Endocytosis. Excuse me. Her hands were protean things, marvels beyond form or function. And when they closed around mine, they left no room for words, as silent and industrious as cilia. Big. I'm just gonna give a little preamble to this poem. It's my favorite in the collection. And I feel like Leslie and I might be on the same kind of wavelength with this poem, given what's in the background of her screen right now. Big. I like elephants. Or I should say, I love elephants. I like that they chew their food slowly, the way my little brother does. I like the way they lumber, not lope. The simplicity of their thick bodies. How each foot has the girth of a tree. How their ears seem almost razor sharp at the edges. I like that their bodies can produce a substance like ivory. I like that they take revenge against poachers and murderers. I like the steel spring strength hidden under the folds of skin. I regret being born in this thin, useless body. I regret these toothpick legs. I regret this big nose, which is somehow not big enough. I regret this disproportionate brain that's outgrown its empathy. I regret not being born an elephant, or I could have wrapped my trunk tightly around you and taken you away from this violence and hate. I could have moved one thick leg after the other through the garbage and the scar tissue and the broken bones. But you are here with your arms wrapped around me. You are here with your back absorbing the blows. You are here dying to take revenge. Maybe you are an elephant. That is why I love you. Excuse me. I feel like every time I do a Zoom reading, I get hiccups right before, and it's always a little bit of an annoyance because it's never after and it's never before. Anyways, such is life. The flaw. Islamic tapestries are purposefully woven with flaws. Errant threads, failures of symmetry, concessions to God and his singular perfection, an acquiescence to the fallibility of even the best. It should take more than a flaw to undermine a levee, but I lack even a carpet's constitution. One flaw and I come unraveled. One flaw and it all comes rushing out. Doubt. It is hydra of proliferating heads, forest seeding so fast it outpaces the burn. Each branch bends with the same question. Did she ever really love you? Does anyone? I hope I'm doing okay on time. I'm really trying not to go overboard. There's only a few left. Ibn Salam. A little preamble to this. There are three poems that kind of kick off the narrative structure, or the three acts of the narrative, each named for one of the main characters of the Layla and Majnun tragedy. And this one is named after Ibn Salam, who's kind of the third interloper who disrupts the love story between Layla and Majnun. Ibn Salam. This is a story of two stars and the ever-present third, whose collision with Layla first sent her hurtling into Majnun's arms, the third to whom she was always fated to return. This is a surrender to grief, the ignition of a much greater madness. Only this Layla wasn't taken by a cruel cosmic whim. She escaped of her own volition. Gravity. Oh God, this is really hiccups. An insignificant thing lacks the needed weight to attract. Lost state, it will barely inspire a reaction. An insignificant thing will always try to accrete, even if hate is the only available mass. Let it build until you collapse alone beneath your own weight. Then, for a moment, you will become a fire on the horizon, beautiful and impossible to ignore. And one last poem. I think I'm good with time. I hope I'm not going overboard. I'm really sorry if I am. Where is it? Oh, it's the last poem in the collection. So I guess I'm jumping over a large part of the narrative, but I guess if you want to get the whole narrative, please go buy the book. Arrival. There's the smallest of sounds, like a beetle's clicking mandibles. A plain breeze from the backyard. The mirror shifts a fraction of a fraction, and in its new light, I look, and for the first time see, both elephant and insect are myself. The beauty of the cicada song, the cockroach's unbreakable will. I see family, fraternity, all creation, love, God, too powerful for a self to overcome. Thank you very much, everyone. Looking forward to the next readings and the discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was so great. And I really appreciate that elephant nod. It was a real teaser, and I think that it will tempt people to buy the book. You know, just getting snapshots like that. We got the story, you know, a bit of the story with each one that gives us that urge. Great. Thank you, Irfan. So next, I would like to introduce you to Stephanie Roberts. Stephanie Roberts was born in Panama, grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and is a longtime resident of Quebec. She is the author of Rushes from the River Disappointment, nominated for the A.M. Klein Prize for Poetry. Critically praised, her work has been widely featured in publications such as Poetry, the League of Canadian Poets, Shenandoah, Art Poetry Magazine, Room, Event Magazine, and several others. Greetings, Stephanie. Great.
Oh, thank you, Leslie. Thank you for your reading, Irfan. So tonight I'm going to be reading from my latest collection, Rushes from the River Disappointment. The first poem is called This is About Being Black. In the morning, there is no day job to be alarmed by, and my waking hours toll same as yours. Black coffee, sweet Jesus, and the white toilet follows, same as you. Dig 6 feet for the sleep of tulip bulbs as the Quebecois neighbor plays that one soul mix she's so proud of, singing, smoking grass, and reckoning Sam Cooke's pains the same as hers. In cold October, sweat weeps even as frost fingers under my clothes. Plant a spring dream for color, kiss before confinement and snow. Francoise hangs over the fence offering a toke. I'm not resigned nor inclined to start sharing her samenesses. Every white body knows everything, painting my nights black and blue with grief, then copywriting the music. I was handcuffed, Paul outraged with sky eyes wide, wrongfully arrested and no job. You think I don't know what it's like to be black? I'm blacker than you. I keep my white thoughts to myself. Ain't nothing blacker than that. Let them think I'm burying crocuses, daffodils, and hyacinths, sunrises and sunsets, pastel approved. But I'm putting white bodies in these holes, digging deep, adding blood meal, laughing about it to the righteous earth. All Hallow Mass. You're not going to get details of whose bedroom I was in. No name, no place. If it was October when the shadow of mountains fell on the alley of misconduct, or the date and gestation of a stillborn, funeral capped in dark curled hair, not what endurance of contempt culminated in a tsunami on the laundry day of divorce, nor the contours of the viper-rotten swamp of unrequited love in which I trained for the Olympics. I dart like a knife into the confectionery amid chocolate-covered cherries, hidden filberts, pralined pecans, and maple syrup lollipops, 50% off post 1st of July, all to avoid a face at your height and hair. Something about George Harrison is ruined for me now, like Father's Day always was. Wedding announcements bring me zero joy. Luster gleams as a private matter, a keepsake only worshipped away from the scrutiny of storm clouds, or unbothered in a bar over handheld glow, bitter silver recollection, set to Andrew Hale and corn whiskey. After Valentine's Day, flowers grace trash bin vases, the pharmacy carts boxed hearts 3/4 off, and it said, the mobile destroys us, or so the Atlantic clucked like Henny Penny. Sincere text or sentimental paper moves, we halt in the light of dimming fire. Our mothers progressed by revolver under pillow or not at all. The day after Halloween is guillotine. After the fame of misfortune, I, you, we present thanks for our wine-sick hearts, for our daily gluten, place our hope across a line to the triumph of mauve solitude. I never tire of the moon. A low sliver, silver they say, so long and goodbye against the growing velvet felt. It seemed to hurt the sky by twin fire of emphasis and opposition. Crescent, comma, scimitar, it was all of these things and none. It was a seizure of the mind, it was. Time travel, extrasensory perception, aliens, God's fallen lash, and Lucifer's lopsided smile, flaming down the night. I sent a prayer. Are you seeing this? Thankfully, we share the same sky, if little else. Ice shacks on a partially frozen river skirt measured disaster. I wanted to run home along our fault line, tell you all about it, like a bloodhound retrieves a hare, lays it, noses the fork of your stance, slobbers joy, hungry for my happiness. This poem is from an unpublished manuscript, so this is like your bonus treat tonight. Black Conversation. From the noose of the poem, the dead woman points off page. Follow her finger to the blue eyes of the poet who caps and uncaps a black fountain pen. He looks at her finger, wipes his eyes, scrolls down. Not I, he is sympathetic. Although the purple tongue tied shut in its duchess has a lot it could say, it wouldn't be saying anything that hasn't been said before. Her arm maintains indication. The poet unscrews his pen, marks the sky, azure, the river, tempestuous, the bystanders, the good old days, the rape, the neck, the feet going nowhere, the bystanders, the show not tell, plus ça change. Turn of the century postcard, the body camera, the hoodie, the bystanders, the wife beside you, the stanza, the assonance, the brain's patterned dashboard, the bystanders, the line breaks. His Mont Blanc outlines her obsidian necklace in mangled African-American vernacular English. He screws his pen back together. The pushcart is coming. And my final poem for tonight is actually the first poem in my collection, People Believing Badly. Those of us who've seen miracles know how to ask. If you've asked, do you love me? I almost certainly don't love you. And if in a foolish bout of poor judgment, I've asked likewise, then, like death and taxes, by now you've retired with fire to your silent battle station. Be that as it is. We agree without asking to say nothing about all this strident, confused unbelief, keeping our conversations to the weather. And that guy who can swallow a Rubik's Cube through a mustard-colored disaster of teeth, solving the puzzle of it via revolting convolutions in gut before regurgitation. I bet that guy believes in I love you. I bet that guy asks for anything he wants.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was really mesmerizing. It's such a treat to be able to hear the poet read their words that I've read. Thank you. So, last but not least, our next poet is Angie Gaona. So let me introduce you to her. Angie Gaona is a well-known poet from Colombia. She's the author of several books, including Volatile Birth and commentary on the radical character. She was imprisoned in 2011 for her activism in defense of Colombian political prisoners. She was freed after poetry festivals from all over the world and PEN International led a campaign for her release. She has also won awards for sculpture and literary criticism and is a member of honor of the PEN Club of Québec. Greetings, Angie. Please feel free to go ahead with your reading when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Let's go. Chemin. Le chemin est entré par la fenêtre. Comme une branche qu'emporte l'orage. Il pleuve. Dénonce adieu. Tombé gravement. Entonné de nom. Appelé à roule sur les trottoirs. Les maisons devant chemin au fur traversées par eux. La lucidité fera des maisons. Leurs habitants cherchaient les terrasses, monteraient et lèveraient leur front avec ferveur vers les rayons qui révélant les chemins. Just un instant. The second one. Shopping. California. You'll not see sunlight without your sunglasses. You'll not breathe outside the bubble. You'll not act without extras or special effects. At Christmas, you'll show for a life. This one. Little Bruce, remember your guardian.
Hello. Hello.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
You're back. Your call dropped, right? So they were playing the video.
Excuse me. Okay. I
Go
would
ahead.
like to thank to all of you for your patience and your compassion too. Okay. And thanks to the poet Michel Terrien for this invitation to VerseFest, to Monty, to Leslie, to you, and to Mike, and all the team of organizers of the festival and of organizers of this reading. It's a great team. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, I will read a poem from each of my books. Okay, from Volatile Bird, I will read a poem in French, translated by Pedro Viana. Au long du canyon. Au long du canyon, j'emprunte les chemins du sternum. Je cherche l'origine de la soie. Je vais au fond d'un canyon, aux parois argentées, solide grâce au temps, mouvant pendant la cruée, pendant l'enfance, air glaciaire. Je collecte les radicelles de la pensée. Je les charge sur mon dos érodé avec l'oubli agreste qui s'échappe de moi. Immerge des petites grottes, les cygnes de la douleur. Véloce, il trompe les regards, il retourne se cacher dans le peu du canyon. Inscrite sur les parois, les coordonnées indéchiffrables du royaume préhistorique qui modèle ma face. Thème de la profondeur, thème sans syllabes, où je ne suis qu'un son, en marche vers la fatigue. Je cherchais une source qui baigne la question privée à mon histoire. Je cherchais la vie tout destinée et je trouve la soie. J'emprunte les sentiers du sternum. Okay, thank you. And I can read. Can I read one poem? One more poem?
Yes, go ahead. We're doing well for time.
Okay, in English, translated by Erin Moure, the poet. I thank to Erin too, Erin Moure, to VerseFest, and she was translating my poetry. Okay, thank you, Erin. It's a poem, a special poem because it's an ode
to my lost language. It's a lost language from the indigenous people of this land in Colombia. Guanenta land, Guane land. Okay, elegy in questions. Gold is a lost cause underground. The earth swallows it up. It does the dead. Gold, but the language, a lost language, where does it go? The voice of 30,000 guanes, claymores in an immaterial heart. Water too is a lost cause underground. Men and beasts swallow it down. Lost lagoons, extinct gullies, black water heads to the sea, but the language, a lost language, where does it go? Men and beasts are lost too. In mid-lagoon, the Laguna de los Caracoles was unruly. It swallowed folks up in the center of the town. The lagoon is remembered, but the language has already gone off with the Guane people who succumbed in the mines. The extinct name of an extinct bird, name of the vanished tree, name of the Rio de Oro, of the Rio Frio, where it's gone. Water was drained from the lagoon, defiled by the thirst of men and the tread of beasts. Time is lost underground too, a lost cause beneath in the memory of gold, of language and lagoon now vanished. Time spins around as do the guane in an immaterial heart. People are located in spaces. They repeat Zapamanga, Bucarica, Chitota, Chimita, 4 extinct heavens. Time spins around as do people in all 4 directions, 4 words that keep grasping a language, and the whole language, where is it go already? Where is it go already? The language was a limestone, like mountains and outcrops. The language turned to dust and vanished in the air, formed an implacable gun resign. A crack called Sumanga appears in the chronicles, vanishing on maps and dispersed spectrally in the head. There in Chocoa, in Chocoita, Guane and Yariguie peoples emerge from the pen like gold and wash down river, down time. Other Guanes scale outcrops, take shelter in an immaterial cave, then toss their language to the abyss, and the abyss left behind by language, where is it to go? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Angie. That was great. It really makes you think. Right. Where does the lost language go? Great. So thank you, poets, so much for sharing with us. We're going to get into the discussion portion of the evening where I ask our poets a few questions to get the ball rolling. But at this time, I would like to invite the audience to start posting your questions on the Zoom Q&A or as a Facebook comment. Okay, thank you. So just a few questions that I wanted to put to you poets. But really, if you feel that the question is not for you and you wanted to talk about something else, I would urge you just to go ahead because what you shared was very powerful. So first question was, what are the recurring themes that you explore in your poetry? What are the ideas or the notions or the issues that you're trying to work through in your poetry? So I just wanted to take a minute to tell the audience that Angie is joining us from Colombia. I don't know if that was clear in my introduction of her. So we had first the video recording that Angie had done for this evening playing instead of her live reading. But thankfully she was able to get back online. Her connection is back up and we're so grateful for that. Okay, so the question is, can you tell us about the recurring themes in your poetry? So I'm going to go in the order maybe in which we started. So Irfan, could you take that one? Could you be the first one to speak to that?
Sure. So I think like a lot of male identified writers, like masculinity is like a major focus of my writing and looking at the ways that I think it undermines who we are as people and destroys us in a lot of ways. And a lot of my work, I think, is a search for more positive ways of, being men, as cliched as that may sound. I think also another big investigation that I'm trying to get through with not just my poetry, but with a lot of my writing, including my essays and short stories that are at various stages of completion right now, is really understanding, I think, like the collective, I hate saying this term because I can't think of a better term for it yet, like the collective kind of darkness that binds all of us together, that this thing at the core of who we are that, is often something that we find difficult to address or difficult to acknowledge, but because we feel it makes us monstrous. But it is that feeling of being a monster that I think is this common thread that links all of us together in one way or another. And trying to really find ways to, again, open up that conversation, open up the discussion, to be able to look at that thing because, as a quick aside before I give it off, one of my favorite books is The Wizard of Earthsea, or A Wizard of Earthsea, actually, by Ursula Le Guin. And there's one great part in that book where the main character conquers a dragon by knowing its name, and that the act of naming something becomes the act of conquest in itself. And I think that is so important when we're doing the kind of difficult work of looking inside of ourselves. Being able to identify and to name things is often the very first step of defeating and actually overcoming them. I'll leave it there because I have a tendency to ramble. So I think I'll just pass it over to Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you, Irfan.
Thank you.
I'm very captivated by relationships, our relationship to our beliefs, which then dictate our political responses and our connection to society as well. And no less importantly, my work explores a lot intimate relationship, the relationship between lover and beloved.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Angie?
Leslie, about the themes, I like to melange, to mixture, a series of sense, like science, history, geography, and economic. all many things, and put it with my personal impressions about the world. No, is like it's like make a cloth. No, it's put one series of economic with one series of personal psychology, one sense of geography, and put all in a new in a poem, in a new kind of communication. No,
it's, right. You're building
yes,
it.
It's a mixture. It's a mixture of many lines of think. Yes.
Right. That's great.
Yes. This is my preference. Yes. Yes. It's science. My last poems in a book called Binary System. Binary System is my last book. It's unpublished. It's unpublished because in Colombia it's very difficult to publish poetry.
Is that right?
Yes, it's very difficult. I know many poets with many unpublished books. Yes, all the poets that I know have 2 or 3 books unpublished books. Yes.
Wow. That's too bad.
Yes. But so I have 2 unpublished books, and one of them called Binary System, and it's a mixture of love poems with science. Yes.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yes.
Well, I look forward to it being published.
Okay. Yes. Someday. Maybe I will have alive.
Let's hope. Right. Okay. Thank you very much. So let me go to maybe one more question from me, and then I'll check out the Q&A. There's a few questions there. Who or what inspires you? So I'll first give it over to
the other way.
Oh, you want to? Angie, if you're ready to answer that one, go right ahead.
Oh, okay, my audio was very bad. What do you say?
Oh, the question was.
No, the question. Yes. Okay. I understand.
You can answer.
Okay. I'm inspiring everything. I'm inspiring my love, Pablo. He's an entrepreneur, and he has a new enterprise, and I love the new enterprises of the young people who rebuild the world, no? From the technology, yes, the technology, the revolution, digital revolution is inspiring me now. Yes, very much. The digital revolution and the discoveries of the science, yes, the science. And in the past, I was inspired by the history and the geography of my land, because in my land, in this land, we have canyons, canyons.
Canyons.
Canyons, yes.
Okay.
There is many canyons, and it's very inspiring. It's very hard geography. It's no easy geography, yes, and
right.
It's very inspiring. But now is the technology and the science, yes.
That's amazing. Great, thank you. How about you, Stephanie? Who or what inspires you?
I'm inspired a lot by nature, the wonders of nature, and sort of my own curiosity about it. I found out today that the second fastest mammal in the world is the pronghorn, which is indigenous to North America. The first fastest animal is in Africa, and it's the cheetah. So there's no animal in North America that is fast enough to catch a pronghorn. And for me, it's fascinating that things would work out that way, and something like that gets my neurons firing right away, and I start making, poetic connections and allusions.
Oh wow! So you do a lot of nature poetry.
It happens.
That's great. Oh, thank you. How about you, Irfan?
I feel like I'm a through and through city boy because I just really get inspired by nature very much. I'm very much, I think it's maybe somewhat unusual as a poet in that I'm actually quite extroverted, and I used to be a party promoter and a DJ. So there's a lot of my life that was really, really about, the social world. And I think that has been the major inspiration of a lot of my writing. I guess in terms of other art, I'm also, I suppose, a little bit unusual in that I don't actually read that much poetry. And I feel like I probably shouldn't admit that out loud, but now I've said it and I can't take it back. And it's actually like, I feel like film is actually the biggest thing. And I think there are certain elements of film, certain techniques when I used to study it that I've tried to adapt and include in my writing, and particularly in my poetry. And Accretion itself, the collection, the narrative structure of it is basically lifted completely from Kendrick Lamar's concept album, Good Kid, Mad City. Like I listened to that through and I'm like, oh, this is the same story, just transplanted to a different context. But, it was music more than anything that inspired this book, on top of the actual experience that inspired it. And I think I'll leave that there.
That's very interesting. So would you say, like, when you watch a movie, are you looking at the movie from an artistic perspective or a poetic perspective?
I think there's, like with any kind of art, when you engage with it, there are certain moments that just grasp you so hard emotionally that, like every one of us has like a scene from a film that we can probably, recall the dialogue off the top of our heads for the rest of our lives. And I think sometimes with some of those moments in film, I kind of thought about ways that they were structured and how I could like transfer those into writing. For example, one of my favorite directors is Yasujiro Ozu. He's a Japanese director who his most famous film, which is I think largely considered one of the greatest films of all time, is called Tokyo Story. And one of the techniques that Ozu really pioneered was cutting out all of the most important events from his narrative. So he would be leading up to a death, and then the death would be gone, and then he would just be, they would jump a few months afterwards to the family dealing with the fallout of it. And I remember the first times I watched those, I was kind of almost mystified by the idea of like, why would you skip over what, that event that's so pregnant with emotion? And then I like realized it's like, oh, because the real emotion, the real heart of that is what happens before and afterwards, and how people adapt to their new surroundings. And that was something that I also tried in this book as well, to maybe some success. I have no idea. I'll leave that to the reader to decide.
Right. Nice. Thank you. So now I'd like to jump into the Q&A portion because there are questions from the audience. I'm going to start with this one. Irfan, Stephanie, and Angie all made references in their poems to elements of their identity, the richness or struggles associated with it. can you tell us more about how it influences your writing? That's a heavy one.
Being a Black woman. It's like, oh, I wake up and if I check my Twitter, I'm almost instantly enraged. So it almost would be impossible, I think, to be in North America. And I mean, there would have to be some sort of head in the sand like quality for I, as a Black woman, to not talk about it, for it not to enter my art, because it is so much of my existence. I mean, whether I like it or not, that's imposed on me.
Right. I hear you. Thanks. How about you, Irfan?
I always think there's like a delicate dance with identity, because I feel like none of us wants to be pigeonholed as like that brown Muslim writer, you know what I mean, or whatever. So like that, I guess that tension's always in my head when I'm writing, that I'm like, we write from our identity, so it's going to be in our writing. We can't avoid that. But at the same time, I kind of, I guess, like bristle against the idea of, having these little markers of identity that are almost like, nice little sprinklings of spices on top for a largely white readership, to put it plainly. So, I think in terms of my writing, I really do try to write for myself or like people like me. And I think a big part of it, a lot of my poetry is mainly love poetry. And I think, a lot of the times, racialized people, we often don't see ourselves reflected as like loving beings, right? That we're always seen as, I remember growing up as a brown guy, it was like either you were a terrorist or you were the nerdy guy. And like, there wasn't really any in between. So it's almost like sculpting out that area, that space for us to see ourselves as loving beings and to understand that. And also, especially nowadays, I think, in this politically charged moment we're in, it's so easy to lose ourselves in like rage and lose ourselves in those. And there's one poem I didn't actually read, which is inspired by about my partner, which is about, again, how do you love people when, we're almost put into these situations because of like the anger that's surrounding us all the time, the anger that we all righteously feel about the world. How do we find and carve out spaces still to have love during those moments? And remember that, that to feed that capacity to love is also an important part of that practice of rage. I don't think I articulated that necessarily the best I could have, but that was my horrible attempt.
Thank you so much. I'm a big believer in self-care as activism, so that really speaks to me. All of your answers, Stephanie, of course. Angie, how about you?
Okay, Leslie, thank you. And thank you to the other poets. It's very grateful for me. It's great for me to meet you. Thank you. So yes, the identity is a problem with us in these territories, no, in Colombia, in our country, because our country is a country information. No, we have only 2,000 years. And it's a country with many mysteries of cultures. And all the poets, I think, are working in the build of this identity. And all the poets and all the writers of the nation are, I think they are worried about the identity problem, no? Yes, and so I was writing this book for my little country, no? Santander is the name of my little country, and it's a special country, and it's a special part of Colombia, because here was the first advance, the first discover of the nation, the first economy in the 18th cycle, in the two cycles ago, no, 2000 ago. So this identity was lost, and this identity was lost in the times, because we lost the war in the beginning of the 20th cycle, and maybe the shame for this lost made that our people doesn't go ahead like the past years, no? So the identity is a very difficult theme in our nation, because we are very, very, very diverse, and we are very abandoned by the elite,
right.
who govern, who government, yes,
right.
And we need many work, but I think someday, yes, someday we go ahead, yes.
Right.
Yeah, but the writers and the literature and the poetry make many efforts for build the identity of the nation, yes.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Angie.
And the art too, no? Yes, thank you.
Right. Yeah, so I just wanted to continue with one question here. So let's see. What do you hope your work accomplishes? So Stephanie, how about you?
Well, my work causes me to examine myself. Am I an authentic person? Am I a good friend? Do I live up to my ideals? You know, am I full of crap? As you know, I wrote this Mary Oliver, you know, as she questioned, what am I doing with my one wild and precious life? And I hope to some degree that my work pokes at that question.
Wow. Thank you. How about you, Irfan?
Like I like to think of poetry almost like the expedition notes of like a poet's descent into that part of themselves that, you know, they don't like to look at very often. And I think if I can do my work well, it serves, or it can, or hopefully it will serve as something like a guidepost, or at least, you know, for one or two other people, be like, here's some of the landmarks you're going to meet along the way of this journey as you're like, you know, as we're all doing this difficult work of overcoming ourselves. And I feel like, you know, even as I say that, I'm like, that's a pompous ass answer. So maybe I'm like shooting far above my station, but you know, if somebody was to ask me what was like the ultimate goal, or where do I want to reach, you know, one day when I'm an actual poet in my 60s and not just like a poet in training as I will be for the next 30 years, then you know, that's what I'd aspire to.
Right. That's great. Thank you. So Angie, so what do you hope your work accomplishes?
What is accomplished?
Like, what is the objective of your work?
Oh, yes. Yes, it's, I don't know. I would like to inspire other young people to produce their own creations. Yes, I would like to inspire the people to be a writer or an artist, or in his since their professions, and make something create something
creative. Right.
Creative. Yes, yes. This is my
your goal,
objective.
your objective. There you go.
Yes,
Why, thank you
Yes.
very much, Angie, and thank you to you all. So I'm just going to conclude the event because I realize that we're past time now. So really, you poets have inspired me. I can't believe it went so fast. So we'd like to thank our partners for making this happen: Ottawa International Writers Fest, Ottawa Public Library, and Library and Archives Canada. Their next event is a master class with none other than award winner Kenneth Opel. Young writers 13 and over are invited to join us Monday, November 16th for a conversation between Kenneth Opel and Ottawa teacher Chris Perry for a conversation on connecting plot and character, using his critically acclaimed new Bloom trilogy for inspiration. I cannot end without again extending a huge thanks to Irfan Ali, Stephanie Roberts, and Angie Gaona. Thank you for your time and your wonderful body of work. And I cannot end without giving a special shout out to my publisher, Mwenzi House, and the amazing Octopus book, the official bookseller and host of my book launch this Friday, November 13th. The book is called Finish This Sentence. Please register for the free virtual launch on the Eventbrite website. And don't forget to check out the VerseFest website for more amazing events to come. Thank you everyone for joining us for a lovely evening of poetry and conversation. Stay safe and have a great night. Goodbye.